Welcome to another version of Rick's Remarks with Dr. Rick. And I want to talk about a subject that all of us can relate to. And that has to do with perspective and what is true. Some people say my truth is right, others say their truth is right, and yet sometimes I've learned that a lot of things aren't right or wrong, they're perspectives. And what happens is we have a perspective of something, and the perspective that I have is my truth, and so I declare that to be the truth, when actually there is another perspective. And the thing is, in relationships, we're never really willing to consider the perspective of another person. Because what happens is, we begin to believe that what we think what we think is true, and when what I think is true, then you have to be wrong. And when you want to live a life in relationships where you're right and that person's wrong, that's okay. Just remember, you can write yourself right out of a relationship, folks. And sadly, a lot of people do, and they even do so religiously. Example, I don't believe in tongues, or you do. I believe in predestination and you don't. You believe in free will. And both of these groups argue that they're right. And the reality is they write themselves out of relationship. They write themselves out of unity. They write themselves into disunity, right where Satan loves to be. Because, see, sometimes we value our rightness at the expense of relationship. And I don't see that with the Lord, because ultimately there is none righteous. So when you think you're more righteous than another, you're not righteous. There's only one righteous. So if he's the only righteous one, God himself says God is the only righteous one, that means the rest of us aren't. That means we might want to start listening to each other's perspectives to greater, excuse me, to get a greater understanding of what is true. Because I've learned that prideful people hang on to what they believe is true and never think about how, listen to how I say this, they never think about how they came to believe what they believe. See, people who are mature move to humility. So here's what I learned about people who are humble. Humble people are willing to think about, how did I learn this? Could what I have learned be wrong? Could what the way I've learned my truth, could there have been error along the way? But people who are right don't question those things. They just believe they're right because someone told them, i.e. legalism, and you don't question legalists. So I want to have a conversation with you about perspective in relationships. And we're going to use physiology. We're going to use physiology for a minute. So if you're watching me for a minute, if you want, you can join me. You can take your finger, hold it up, and you look at your finger. And I want you to look at your finger with your right eye closed. And just kind of look at the finger with your right eye closed. Be aware of what your brain sees with the left eye only. Then you can close the left eye, let the right eye focus as you look at your finger with the right eye, and be aware of what the right eye sees, the picture your right eye sees as you look at your finger. Just be aware of the picture. And you can kind of, move it back and forth. It looks like your finger is moving, but of course, we know it's not. Now, here's a question for you. The picture your brain sees with the left eye, is that the same picture your brain sees with the right eye? And of course, the answer is no. The left eye picture and the right eye picture are actually not the same. There are similarities, of course, but in the end, the two pictures are not the same. So then I beg to ask the question then, can the left eye ever see what the right eye sees? And can the right eye ever see what the left eye sees? And of course, the obvious answer is no, it won't. Because the left eye will always see to here, the right eye will always see to here, but the left eye can't see over here until it moves, but then once it moves, it isn't seen over here because the right eye is seeing something different. So the reality is the left eye and right eye will never see the same picture, ever, biologically. Now, figure back up for a minute if you'd like, and look at it with the right eye closed. Look at it with the left eye closed. Now look at it with both eyes and ask yourself this question. Is the picture that I see with both eyes open as I look at my finger with both eyes, is that the same picture as the left eye or the right eye? And of course the answer is no. If I took the left eye picture and the right eye picture and seamed them together, just kind of seamed them together, so it goes from here to here, would that be the same picture? And the answer actually is no, and here's why. If you look at your picture again with two eyes, or your finger again with two eyes, you're going to notice something about the picture of two eyes that you will never have with one eye. So if all it took was a one eye picture and a one eye left eye picture, one eye right eye picture, seen them together, there's something I'm still not going to have with both eyes. And here's what it is: depth perception. There is no depth perception with one eye. Depth perception comes with two eyes. You see, when you look at it with two eyes, you actually see deeply. And so relationships are actually the same way. What happens is I am the left eye, well, it's the right eye, and the left eye has a perspective of something. I have a perspective of something. But the problem is I don't listen to her perspective. All I'm declaring is I'm the right eye and I'm right. And she goes, no, I see something you don't see. No, I'm right, you're wrong. So the left eye and the right eye will never be in agreement. But yet when both of them look at something, you get something, your brain gives you something that you won't have with one eye. You can see deeply. You see, I've learned in relationships that it's better to listen, because in listening you can learn. Think of it this way. If you're looking at my hand right now, what do you see? Well, you would see fingers and lifelines and those kinds of things, right? I don't see lifelines. I see fingers, but I see fingernails. I see knuckles. Now, I don't see what you see. What you see is you can't see what I see. But how can I see what you see? And the answer most people say, well, turn your hand around. The problem is you can't turn reality around. It's impossible to turn reality around. So then how can I see what you see? Is I'd have to ask, hey, tell me what it is. Why do you think the way you think? Why are you saying that? Why is it, Luella, you don't like dogs? See, I like dogs, right? She hates dogs. I like dogs, she hates dogs. And our realities are different. And those realities will never be the same. Until one day I actually asked, tell me why you don't like dogs. And I listened to her perspective. And I listened to her perspective. I learned some things. And then I began to hear in 3D. I could see in 3D. I saw the bigger picture. And was like, oh, no wonder you don't like dogs. Now, that's still her reality. It's not mine. But what happened is I began to see the whole reality. The greater truth. You see, the problem is I don't care what the left eye thinks. Left eye is going to listen to me, right eye. And by the way, since I know I'm right, then you have to be wrong. It's like all the stuff going on right now. You got the left, political left sees as a reality of the world. And on some level, they're right, folks, whether you like it or not if you're conservative. And the conservatives have a political view of the world. And on some level, they're right, whether you and the left don't like it. You're both right, and you're both wrong on some levels. The only problem is you defend your rightness. And sadly, in defending your rightness, you become rude. I said something a long time ago, your rightness doesn't justify your rudeness. It's what happens in the church today. You don't agree with my brand of theology, my perspective of it. And sadly, the things that divide us are the issues that have no bearing on eternity. Zero. But we make those points of contention. Why? Because you have to agree with my brand. I can't agree with your brand. You'll see this a lot in the Christian counseling field. The nouthetic counseling camp is anti the other camp. Where most of the people in the camp that I'm in, the integrationists, we're not anti-nouthetic. We don't necessarily agree with them, but we're not anti them. We don't have the negative emotional energy they do. Not like over this way. Why? Because some people believe they have to defend the Bible. The Bible doesn't need you to defend it. It needs you to live it. I'm going to say that again. The Bible doesn't need you to defend it. It needs you to live it. And when you get into conversation with people, live it out and speak the truth of it. And let the Holy Spirit deal with those people. It's not your job to convince them. It's your job to live out the truth and speak the truth in love. So, perspective, left eye versus right eye. If you want to have a relationship with someone, then now we're going to take this teaching around perspective, and we're going to talk about what do you have to have a relationship with anybody. It could be a Walmart employee, a postman, husband, wife, kids. What do you have to have in order to have a relationship with anybody? And to do that, you'll see here on the screen behind me a picture of an airplane. So I use this as a metaphor. Now, let's assume for a minute this airplane, the fuselage is a relation. But let's say this fuselage relationship has no wings and no wheels. All right? personally, this relationship can't go anywhere. It can't do anything. And the reason it can't go anywhere or do anything is it has no wheels and no wings. So a relationship has to have certain things in order to exist. So if we had a relationship with no wings and no landing gear, that would be like a bunch of people in my mind sitting in a library. They're all reading books to themselves. We could ask, are they in a relationship? No, they're not in a relationship. Why? Because the fundamentals for a relationship don't exist. So if we want to have a relationship to move along the ground, to move a relationship forward, you have to have three things. Number one, we're going to call those the landing gear. The first thing is communication. Left eye and right eye got to start talking to each other. People have to start talking. The left eye needs to understand the right eye, and the right eye needs to understand the left eye so that you can see in 3D, so you can hear each other, and you see a bigger picture. Sadly, I don't care about what the left eye wants, and you don't care what the right eye wants. And because of that, you cannot have a relationship with someone. Now, the second thing you have to have, one of the other landing gears, is not only does left eye and right eye have to communicate, you have to start recognizing the other person. You have to honor the other person. That means I have to listen to you. They have to consider what you say. I have to honor, respect you, and value you. That means I need to be quiet and listen to you. You understand, folks, as long as you're talking, you're not learning. When you're talking, you're just sharing what you already know. Learning can never happen until you close this and start listening. Listening is the foundation for learning. Without listening, you can't learn. And so now I've got to recognize you. I got to ask, all right, tell me why you see what you see, Luella. Help me understand where you came up with that. Why do you feel this way and believe this way? And as I start to listen to left eye, I'm listening to you. That means I'm recognizing you apart from me. And the third thing you have to have, the third landing gear, is trust. So the three landing gears are communication, left eye, right, I got to talk. You got to recognize the other person. You got to honor them and listen to them and hear them and consider them. And third is trust. There has to be trust in a relationship. Now, trust in this model of understanding basically means this. The way we trust people is the way we know them to be. I mean, you trust people based on what way you know them. Think of it this way. If I know you to be late, I trust you to be late. If I know you to be a person who's on time, I trust you to be on time. If I know you to be someone who's willing to listen and who listens and cares, I trust you to be that way. If I know you to be someone who doesn't listen and doesn't care, I trust you to be that way. So you see, folks, people will trust you based on the way that they know you. And you create that for yourself based on how you are. All right? So if we have left eye, right eye talking, communication, we're recognizing and honoring the other person, and we're being trusted based on how we're known, now we can move a relationship along. Any relationship, you can start moving a relationship along. But I don't want a relationship that just moves along. I want one that soars. So we need the wings. And I call the wings of the plane, the relationship plane, these. To the degree that, here's the wings, that my relational patterns or interactions are loving, caring, and sharing. That we love each other, that we're caring for each other, and that we share. And we share together even in conflict. To the degree that my relational patterns are loving, caring, sharing, we're recognizing, communicating, and I'm being known as someone who is loving, caring, and sharing, I can soar any relationship with my children, with you. But when you start attacking, when you start defending, when you start tearing people down and invalidating their views, if they walk out of a relationship with you, don't complain about it. Because you basically said by your very actions, I don't want a relationship with you. I want to be right. And if you want to be right, be right. But you can write yourself right out of a relationship. And sadly, so many people do this every single day on the political left and the political right. Conservative Christians do it all the time. This is why there's so many church splits, divorcing Christian marriages. Why? Because somebody wants to be right. Write yourself out of a relationship, folks. I'm telling you, and hear me well on this, there is only one who's completely right. It's God himself. No one else is righteous. He's always right. That means he's righteous. And he does not write himself out of a relationship with us. Sadly, we haven't learned to do that with each other yet. Hope this helps. Blessings to you.